back to another fabulous favorite channel. I'm Jay from Jay's Books Corner, and we are going to be talking about my January wrap-up. It is 12 books. If I read any books on the 31st of January, it'll be counted in my February wrap-up, so we'll talk about it then, so don't worry about that. And we have a lot of fun books to talk about. I'm going to shout out a few videos that are coming forward that I read books for. Secret TBR stuff. So I'm just going to say, this is part of Secret TBR. It's going to be fun. Before I jump into it, I'm going to be doing mini reviews over on TikTok for more in-depth. If you're looking for like a 2-minute review or something like that, that's the plan to do it over there. And then, with that being said, I'm living this year with no synopsises. That's not including me not reviewing the book to you, but I will preference to you if I believe you should go into it blind before I talk about it. I'll tell you my start rating in case that would affect or dismiss or maybe excite you, but I'll tell you if you should read the synopsis or not. So that'll be a fun little game we'll play this time around. So the first one I'm talking about is The Deep. I have a whole video talking about The Deep as I read it for my first book, so I'll put it in the cards. I also have a TikTok talking about The Deep, and a lot of people agreed with me, in my opinion, over on TikTok about this book as well, which was pretty cool. This is the book I highly recommend going completely blind, so that's my point being here. Just fast forward to the next book in case you don't want to know anything. My star rating, to if that affects you or not, was like a 2. It's like a 2.5 was where I landed. So this is a story about a brother who ends up going down into the deep trenches of the earth to find his other brother who is solving a cure for a disease that's going on above Earth that can only be solved down. And I did not like it. I didn't like it at all. I didn't find the body horror gross or disgusting, but if you are quickly offended by body horror, this is not for you. If you're quickly offended by animal, not so much torture, but animal abuse or animal anything, this book is not for you. If you're offended by family trauma, any type of family trauma, this book is not for you. This really does deal with family trauma, what it does to one person's psyche and brain, and they do it kind of does in a very interesting way. It's just very boring to read when you're trying to read this like high-octane horror novel. I was expecting more like The Troop. The Troop, sure, I had my issues with The Troop because I thought like it was like a little too like cookie cutter for my personal taste here, like with character-wise. I felt like it was too stereotypical for a lot of the characters and the actions in that book. This one was like, okay, fine, I heard your complaint. Here's character development. And I take back my complaint. Give me the cookie cutters, guys. I want a bloodbath. And that's what you're good at writing. I'm so interested in more Nick cutters, such as like The Acolyte interests me quite a bit, and a few others, so I'm sure I will dabble back into him. But this was not a great second outing for me. Next we're going to talk about is Breaking Time. Now, this is a book I actually recommend you skip entirely, so like feel free to synopsis it, I don't know. This is also my first DNF of 2023. I DNF'd it 30% in because it was originally my first book I picked for the year, and I was like, nope, not doing this shit. I don't want a 1. It would have probably ended up being like a 1.25 star or something like that. It was particularly bad. I thought a lot of people were hating on this because of Sasha Osberg, who is the author for a lot of different reasons. I highly recommend you look into that situation. We have 2 authors on this list I highly recommend you look into the situations for, and Sasha Osberg ends up being one of those. Wasn't the case for me personally. For Sasha Osberg, I guess because I watched her on YouTube and stuff, I could be like, okay, that's not great, but I'll move past it for the book. The book itself was horribly written. It follows a boy or a guy who gets taken out of 1750 Scotland, put in present day Scotland, and we don't know why, and now they're fated. These 2 people are fated, and it should have been adult. That was my first takeaway. Maybe it was originally adult and they dumbed it down for YA. Maybe that was the problem. And I also don't really enjoy stories. I understand where they're coming from, but I think a good example of what I'm about to describe here, a story that takes place back in the 1700s or something like that, and it's not told from a first person point of view where your thoughts would be the common language, then I don't think it should be in the common language, in my personal opinion. Maybe that's the wrong one. Let me know. Shadowhunters does something very similar. It's back in 1800, sometimes 1700. And the only thing that's normally dated in that regard is the dialogue. Everything else is pretty much in standard. Obviously the culture is different and that's being talked about, but like actual language being to describe things is not. And so I think that's also something else that pissed me off a lot about the writing for this one. The next one being Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer. I don't recommend the synopsis for this one. I did read over it and I don't recommend it. I landed on like a 3 for Buffy. Is that right? No, I landed on a 2. I've been lying to everybody. I landed on a 2. It's probably like a 2.75, 2.5. This follows Buffy as she is the last vampire slayer again. This is her Logan tale, yet the artwork kind of sucked. The characters really sucked. I really didn't really feel like where they took Buffy in any way, shape, or form would be the way. Like with Logan, you can see the progression of how he becomes Old Man Logan, even in the comic book and or the movie. Buffy, there is no recollection of that character. They jumped us into a whole alternate reality for this with characters and actions that we didn't even get to see. It was done off paper. And I think that right there was the criminal thing for this one. The new character they introduced, the new, her little sidekick pal, I also didn't really care for. I find them to be kind of annoying and quite bossy, mostly a brat. And I normally don't mind those as teenagers because how adults see teenagers, but for this one, it really rubbed me the wrong way. And I didn't like the design of the character either. That's all I really say on it, though. I'll move on. Next we're talking about is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. Like I said, my reading has not been going great this month. This one, no joke. This one I also highly don't recommend the synopsis. I couldn't even really explain to you what the book is about here, so I'm not going to try. This was a 3 for me. I don't really know how to describe it to you why it's a 3. I thought it was something different, and then I read the synopsis and I was like, oh, okay, I even thought it was wrong. On one hand, maybe I do recommend the synopsis so you have like a much clearer idea what the world is about, but I just found it to be very confusing, and that type of thing is the best way I know to describe it. I landed on a 3. I think N.K. Jemison's writing is amazing, and part of the reason why I got a 3 with the writing, plus the additive second point of view that's put in here. That's all I'll say on that. I thought it was great. Definitely switched up the novel, made it very confusing to read, but also very enjoyable, like from a writing standpoint. So I ate that shit up, even if I hated it. I'll definitely pick more N.K. Jemisin. If you guys have any recommendations, please let me know in the comments what's your favorite N.K. Jemisin, and I will surely get around to it. The next one is a personal read of mine called The Ruling. So the book I wrote personally for myself to be published to you guys hopefully soon. And then life happened, and actually the entire series changed. There will be a video talking about that coming out relatively soon to have an update on that. And I read this for a video for you guys, a reread video that I've been working on since the end of December, and it just didn't pan out. I did read it, I did like it, but there's reasons, and we'll get into those as a video. That's the best way I know to explain it. Okay, then I went through a whole a shebang of them. So we have We Spread by Ian Reid. I do not recommend going in. I recommend going into this completely blind. Do not read anything about it. So just please skip away. Just know that I gave you my whole entire heart saying you need to read this book, and that's all you need to know. I gave it a 4.75 stars. There is a reason why I didn't give it 5. I won't talk about that here as it does contain spoilers, but it is a 4.75 stars for sure. I will mention it did not make me cry, but if you are someone who is very close with an elderly person or know someone who is in a home are going through similar things as the characters are going through in this, I do feel like it could hit you very emotionally, so just be prepared for that. It could be triggering to you. I didn't find it that triggering except for the opening. This follows Ruth. I'm going to jump into the synopsis or what the book is about and tell you guys my overall thoughts and opinion. This follows Ruth as she is put into a assisted living home after being deemed not able to live by herself because she believes she is being watched. That's the only part of the book that I felt any type of connection and or personal to due to personal experiences, which I do talk about in the video that this book is in. Sorry, that's the second book for Secret TBR. The 5th season also is going to be talked about in a future video, so keep an eye out for both those as they both be coming back around. With that being said, I loved the writing. Ian Reid is slowly becoming a new favorite author of mine, not all-time favorites. I'm going by the Kayla rules of you have to have 3 5s. I've had 0 so far. I've gotten real fucking close though, so there is one out there. I can feel it. I think Ruth as a character is so beautiful, so graceful, and so amazing. And I think what Ian Reid sets out to do for elderly and care and things are beautiful. And I think it's handled so well. I had one slight issue with it. I can't really talk about, like I said, for spoilery thoughts. If you guys want me to talk about it in a spoilery detail, I can add those in post for that video. So just let me know in the comments down below and I can put my spoilery opinion in there. That one. The next one, The Clown Burgrade by Stephen Graham Jones. I was looking for a new Stephen Graham Jones to listen to. I was also trying to go through a few more books on my script app just to kind of work my way through them. Just because I have a script this month and I was like, I should try to listen to as much shit on here as possible. And so this was one that was recommended to me. It's Stephen Graham Jones, and I really liked it. I liked it quite a bit. It reminded me of a short story that I read last year in the Monsters collection. It was very similar to one of those. This one is done much better. It's about clowns and fear of clowns and things, and that's all you really need to know about it. I do recommend. It was a very fast listen. It's also going to be a very fast read if you decide to pick up the ebook that's on the script. It's like a little over 100 pages, and I really like it. It was a 4. I liked it. I don't got anything else to say about it. All right, then we jumped into some rereads for me personally, and that is the last 2 books in the Wayward Children series. I did not remember Across the Green Glass Fields, which made me very sad because it does deal with Horse Girl. Horse Girl deals with unicorn. Unicorns are my favorite thing in the entire fucking world. Do I have a unicorn behind me? No. Oh, yeah. Favorite thing in the whole entire fucking world. I was sadly once again disappointed with this. This was a 3-star. It was a 3-star the first time I read it. It was a 3-star this time. It's just, you're very, like, this is the most cozy fantasy you can get in this series, and it just, I didn't like it. I like the more darker shit that Shauna McGuire comes up with, and this just wasn't it. And then we have Where the Drowned Girls Go. I'm being very vague. I'll explain what the series is here in a minute. We have Where the Drowned Girls Go, and this was also a 3. This is the book that came out before the newest one that came out this January, which I'll be reading in February, so I'll be reviewing that next month. Not in its own separate video. I've never done a whole video on this series, so let me know if that's something that interests you guys. But I had planned on making one last year and release of this one, and I just didn't get around to doing it, or I filmed it and I didn't post it, something out of those lines. Either way, with Where the Drowned Girls Go, I didn't like it. It was a number 3. So Across the Green Grass Fields follows, I can't remember her name. She's introduced like 2 books earlier. This is a series about kids who end up finding doors to magical places to fit their needs at that particular time. Normally the doors end up sending them out once that time is passed. You either grow up too much or your just need of that place is done and so they're kicking you out, but you have grown so accustomed to that world that you want to go back, and so you go to this place called Wayward Children, run by the headmistress. I can't think of her name off the top of my head. And so Across the Green Grass Fields is one of the Portal World books. Every odd one is a Portal World book. So this was a Portal World book, and it takes place inside like this unicorny horse world full of kindness and sweetness, and it was really great for the character. And I also thought the character development here was pretty freaking strong. Where you have almost the exact opposite, Where the Drowned Girls Go. Where the Drowned Girls Go, we get introduced to the second school that's been mentioned a few times throughout the series, where you would go to escape, not wanting to go back to this world. So the world of Wayward Children's, that home is made for you, for if you want to talk about that world you want to and experience it and try to get past it. Whereas this other one, like Whitechapel or something like that was what it's called, you go specifically to escape and run away from. And our main character, once again, I cannot remember her name to save my life, ends up going there because she does not want anything to do with her world. She had a horrible experience in her world, and she has a fear of drowning because of it, which is why it's called Where the Drowned Girls Go. And I found this book to be so boring for 90% of it, and it got interesting in like the epilogue. I was like, yeah, it's not worth it. But I don't recommend. I actually think this is my least favorite one out of the entire series. I think the second one's still my favorite. I'd say the second one's probably second or fourth one's probably my favorite. I'm very excited for the new one. I'll continue reading them as they come out. My friend read it. She loved it. So I'm excited. Moving on. Next, we have The Haunting of Natalie Gloss. This is written by a new author. The cover's on the screen, and I really liked it as well. The possession of Natalie Gloss could be in it. And this mom calls in the church, or someone who works for the church, to investigate her 10-year-old daughter who is showing signs of possession. Is essentially what the book is about, and that's all I recommend you going into it. It's a novella. I read it because the author, there's another book the author had written, but I wanted to experience the writing firsthand, and it was great. It was beautiful. I felt like the whole book, I was like, ooh, this is okay. This is like good, but it's not like great. And then in the ending, blew me away, which never happens. And so this got a 4 for me. If you like things like this, and you know what the book is about, I do recommend The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, because it has a very similar vibe and or taste. That one has a lot more to deal with like animal abuse, so just be prepared for that if you like this. Or if you like that, you want to read this says that has to do with animal abuse at all, but it does have to do with possession of a child. I guess there is animal abuse in it, but it's nowhere near to the degree of Stephen Graham Jones for sure. Highly recommend though. Next, we move on to the 2 books I actually own, so that's good for Jacob. We have Wings of Fire, The Lost Heir. I read this because my little sister was like, are you going to read it? Are you going to read it? Are you going to read it? So I read it. This is the second book in the Wings of Fire series. Or I think it's called the Wings of Fire series. I'm not entirely sure. This one follows Tsunami as she is going home, as the 6 dragons are going there. I don't really need to talk to you about it. It's a great middle grade series. Do you go into it, parents, knowing that it's very violent? So I would look up to see if it's too violent for your child. But they love dragons and they don't mind the violence. They do like the action. It's very high octane, very fast paced, with very lovable characters. I highly recommend. I had a great time with this. I gave it a 4, which I think was higher than Wings of Fire, the first one. Fuck. I am in my water era, I have a feeling, and so like I feel like that's a big reason why I really like this one. This one really worked for me. But I'm quite excited for the Hidden Kingdom because of the dragon that we're following for that one. So hopefully I'll pick that one up in February. Maybe we'll pick up the next 2 in February. So that brings us to the last book, which I just got done reading, which is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delilah Owens, which is for my unread TBR pile, which I made in a video a while ago, like 3 or 4 months ago. I had said in that video I made a TBR, so like it's not that like spoiler that I'm reading books for it. And you'll see more books on my February TBR with those in mind. With that in mind, I think I have 2 more on that one, trying to go through the 6 or 7 books I picked out. This one was picked out because I had said when I filmed for the initial video, which was like, I don't know, like a year prior, I had said something along the lines, if this ever get made into a movie, then I'll read it. The movie came out, the movie's been out, movie's on Netflix, so I read the book. I think you should look into Delilah Owens. I think that's my takeaway with Where the Crawdads Sing. I literally just finished it. I just got done filming it. That review section in that video is going to be so long. Each clip was like 10 minutes long because I had so many thoughts and opinions on this book, talking about it in a critical way of how I feel like the author does harm. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I didn't find anything particularly interesting about this book. I found some of the characters to be pretty likable. I felt like the courtroom scenes, if you know what the book is about, to be very enjoyable. I also really liked Kaya as a character, which is our main character. I enjoy normally a story that follows a character from a very young age to the current, whatever the age they end with. But this one didn't do it for me. I think it needed about 150 more pages and a better editor and also just a better writer behind it. And that's my opinion on Where the Crawdads Sing. This is a classic. This is some people's favorite book of all time. And I'm sorry, it's not mine. I don't really know why it's yours either. I think you really just need to... I can't say anything about it, okay? The part that I'm coming out of with Where the Crawdads Sing is like how I feel like people feel when I say A Little Life, one of my favorite books of all time, if not my favorite book of all time. Because like, I get it, but also like, I'm judging you. So like, I get it too. I get it again. Like, I get why you judge me, but now do you get why I judge you? It's like a 2-way street here. Alright, either way, those are the 12 books I read in January. Let me know what you guys think about them, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys all next time.